of prosecutorial discretion?
Well, the main limits are the ones that I laid out with more detail in the written statement, but to summarize them briefly, one, the President cannot refuse to substantially spend the resources Congress has provided because
So if we fully funded everything he wanted with respect to DHS, he could not suspend any deportations.
I think that is an unanswered question. I'm confident.
Well, that's what you just said.
No, I said that was one limit.
But I just removed that limit. So if we were to fully fund that, he would lack the discretion to not enforce that law. Correct?
I suppose that's theoretically possible. It's just never been decided by a court because it would be rare to find a law enforcement agency so flush with
what I'm trying to
resources.
get at, Professor, is if your district attorney decided that he or she was not going to enforce or prosecute any heroin cases because he or she just thought the war on drugs was a lost cause, other than elections, what remedy would the legislative branch have if they disagreed strenuously with that executive branch employee's wholesale refusal to enforce the law?
Well,
what remedy exists for us?
Well, the legislature could very specifically supersede the decision. There's nothing in the statute that specifically supersedes the president's priorities, but if the legislature was
So you mean the legislative branch could put in that statute the word shall? You shall prosecute.
That would not nearly be enough. We all know that in the
Well, what should we put in our DHS funding to let the president know? Help us write that bill, Professor.
Well, I don't know that I could draft it off the top of my head.
Well, take a crack at it.
Okay. Well, the legislature Congress could do something similar to what it did when it mandated very specific priorities. There's language that specifically mandates a priority on national security. There's language
but why does the legislative branch have to pick priorities? Why can't we just say we want the law enforced?
Well, I was offering one option for how a statute could be drafted.
Well, you would agree with me that the ultimate remedy is the ballot box, right? If a DA is not enforcing the law, his or her voters can vote them out, right?
Well, yes and no. There are certain instances in which plaintiffs have been found to have standing to challenge prosecutorial discretion, but I don't see this as being one of them.
Do you think the consequences of the elections might have been why the president waited until after the midterms to issue his executive order as opposed to before it?
Well, yes and no. I'm not sure it's the outcome of the election so much as the desire to avoid the kind of political confusion that would result.
Well, it's not political confusion, Professor, with all due respect. This is legal confusion because I'm trying to understand what the limits of prosecutorial discretion are. There are at least 3 different categories of law. There are certain laws that say you can't do something like possess child pornography. There are certain laws that require you to do something like register for selective service. Right. And then there are laws that Congress passes which require the executive branch to do things, for instance, turn in a budget by a certain date. Is your testimony that the executive has the power to use prosecutorial discretion in all 3 categories of law?
It would depend on the facts, and it would depend on the specific.
Well, give me a fact pattern
structure
where a president can refuse to do something that Congress tells him or her to do by a certain date. That is not prosecutorial discretion, with all due respect. Professor, that is anarchy.
I agree with you, Congressman, that Congress, if specific enough, could foreclose a particular type of exercise of prosecutorial discretion. My only point is that they have not done so in this case.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm out of time. Can the president suspend all deportations, and if not, why not?
I believe not, because that would contravene both the congressional intent in passing the Immigration and Nationality Act generally. But
well, how far can he go? Out of the 11 million, if 4 million's okay, can he go up to 8?
My answer to that question is the same as the one I gave a little bit earlier. It's impossible to answer without the empirical knowledge of whether that would still leave him with the ability to substantially spend the resources Congress has provided. But
what I would love, if you can, and I'm out of time.
We will make America great again.